Welcome to Metal Kaoz, Alejandro. Nice having you.
Thanks. It's a pleasure to be with you guys.
Absolutely. So let's start right away. So first of all, Cultura Tres have been around for like what, 10 years,
I'm back
almost.
counting, but I think a little bit more because our first EP, and I had to go to Wikipedia to remember this, by the way. I actually saw that we had our dates wrong. We normally said that we started at 2007, and then some fans pointed out that we released an EP in 2006. So yeah,
That's true. That's true.
I guess we're busy from 2006.
Oh my goodness, yeah. So the story has not been easy for you, right?
I think we're stubborn, especially it's my brother and me, the only members that been all the time throughout to this point. And we're really stubborn. Actually, some people don't even know, but we actually came to Europe with a band before Cultura Tres, which started in 1995. So my brother and me, we've been making music since 1995 constantly, and the ups and downs, but we just this is our dream. We're not gonna let it go. We had tough times indeed at a certain moment, but we this is the only life that we know. So there's no way that we're gonna abandon this dream.
Yeah, countries like Venezuela seems to have, and I'm Greek, right? And we seem to have to share the same love for metal. There are so many dedicated metalheads in those places.
Yeah, South America in general, and as you mentioned,
Absolutely.
Greece is also, I put in the same group in Europe in my experience, like the Greeks, the Italians, the Spaniards, and the Portuguese, seem to share something, some passion for metal. I'm actually one of my favorite bands. Well, what I would call new. Of course, it's not new, but I'm that old. So the band that is not one of the pioneers of the genre that came after one of my favorite ones is a Greek band. It's a Septic Flesh,
Ooh,
which I have a lot of respect for that band. I think it's an impressive band and
absolutely.
uh, and I love that the passion that goes in our countries. I don't know what do they share, but I've noticed that energy, and I also seen it in Greece. Maybe it's the weather.
Well, maybe, or maybe it's sometimes, when you have economical challenges, let's say, or the society is in a specific way. This is why you have great metal bands, thrash bands, because you want to get out of other things and use
True,
music as
true
an
that.
escape. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Cultura Tres, all the releases have been released independently, right?
No, not completely. We a lot of the times want to keep everything under our control. That's true, but we had yeah, our second album was released through a British label. They're no longer around, but I remember we had that second album released with a Doom label, and then our third record, I believe. Let me see. Then there was one we were independent again, and then the one after the fourth record, we were also with a punk label this time, a British punk label.
Are you talking about distribution, or are you talking like a full scale record deal that they handle the promotion and all the stuff?
We had a full record deal for Mal del Bien.
Okay, okay, good.
Yes, and then of course we had distribution deals like now in this case we have double.
Hmm.
We have for some territories a distribution deal, and for other territories we're fully signed.
Yeah. So, do you like this, or is that a choice that was forced upon you?
No, not really. I mean, I think that any situation that a band has that is allowing them to spread their music around is a positive one. I don't have really like a complete love, like or hate, or the DIY is the only way to do things, or I don't have particular love for a situation of being independent or not independent. Like you gain something and you lose something,
Of
that's for
course.
sure, but gaining a bigger platform to distribute and to reach people is not a bad thing. I don't consider it a sellout or anything. Sometimes depending on the genre you are at, sometimes it is that detrimental for the reputation of the band. I mean, it's an ideology as well that has been around. We are very familiar with doing things on our own. So when things are not provided to us, we will deliver. And we developed that out of realizing that we were going to get our music out there no matter what happens. This comes because we were signed before, where my brother and I had that band that I referred to, and we had a full record label. No, before, after Epitafio. Epitafio was the first band that we got involved. It was from 92 to 95.
Okay.
And then my brother and I were in a band called Agresión, and we were signed in the Benelux. And there we basically lived from our music at the time. So we had the situation where everything was provided to us, when we have a producer, when we had a record label that will deal with the recordings, that will provide for the video clips, that will do everything. And then we learned a lot from that period. So maybe if we wouldn't have that situation, we wouldn't see how things could work, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then after the CD market basically collapsed in 2003, which is not a secret for everybody, that everything went south for a lot of bands, then it was just an option. If we wouldn't learn the skills to make things happen for ourselves, that was the end of our music enterprise, and we didn't want that. We wanted to go on. And then you're forced to learn.
Of course. And I was smiling, laughing when I heard you about, when a band signs with a record label, it's a record label, then they sell out. I grew up thinking like that. We had people say, oh, the demo is great, but now they are on a record label. They are sell out.
Yeah, it happens, I mean, it depends on the music you listen to, like in the punk, really DIY circuit, for instance, in the what they call the squat houses of Europe, there are bands like that, that it is independent is really the way to go. And I have respect for both situations, I don't demonize any situation. I think at this stage, there's a lot to learn being independent. There's a lot to learn being signed. We've been signed, and we learn a lot from the people that we needed to learn about. And then when you're independent, you could apply everything you've learned.
Absolutely.
And now we're both, basically. In some territories we're independent, some territories we're fully signed.
Okay, let's start talking about the album. And before asking about that, how did Paulo join Cultura Tres? Did you have the album, maybe some demos, or how that happened?
Yeah, it's a really long story. Actually, Paulo, he's been in Cultura Tres for many years already, in a way, because he's a great friend. He's like my older brother, It's like we've been very close for many, many years, for decades, it comes way long. It's not with Epitafio, we opened the Kaoz AD tour for Latin America, was probably the first show in Caracas, which was very impressive. So that changed my life. But after that, we became really good friends in Europe. We had enterprises together. We do things together for a while. And he was very supportive of Cultura Tres, right? Because he likes me and my brother as friends. And he was quite involved in trying to help us throughout the years, since I would say things from 2016 to 17, he was already getting more involved. You guys should do something with this, because, he was trying to help. However, as it's not a secret for anybody that Paulo is on a completely different league, and the challenges that a band of our size on our league has to encounter, they're completely different than what a band like Sepultura will endure. When they had their share of being small band, independent, and everything was somewhere in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
So if then from there on is one of the biggest metal acts in the planet. So the challenges were very different than Paulo had guessed, I believe. And then at a certain moment when he was, we had a tour in Brazil we were opening for Dimo Borgir, and then we were playing in Brazil, and then Paulo went alone, just because we were visiting his country and we're his friends. He could to see really how difficult it is to be a band of our size in these times, So I think, all the attempts that he had made to help us in the past, it kind of got a reality check. It's like, whoa, being a band of this size in this time is very different than what it used to be. So I think the next step was for him, at the time when we came back from that tour in 2018, we lost our drummer and bass player. Our bass player at the time, Alonso, he said, we had it with this of being always switching people and everything. And you know what? I'm just going to play drums. And he said, I'm going to be the drummer because at least we could make songs. And then, I was at the time when I got this news, I was with Paul in Los Angeles, and we were at a convention together. And then Paul overheard. He said, what's going to happen when we CULTURA TRES? I was like, I don't know, but at least we're going to have Alonso drumming. And he said, he's going to play bass. And it's like, I don't know. And it's like, I'll play bass. And then
that was the fastest audition in the history of auditions, right?
There was no audition. It's just like, okay, yeah. It's like, Paulo, you play in, you're playing a huge band. It's like, we figured it out. We make music, This is a friendship thing, most of all is a friendship thing. So we had the band basically disassembled because we didn't have musicians to go on. And then Paulo said, let's do it. So we started to compose, that was 2019. I wanted to write a new record. And then what happened. Pandemic kicked in, all kinds of tragedy. Also for us, my brother and me, we lost our mom during that period.
Oh, man, so I'm sorry.
It was very hard for us. We basically, it wasn't a pretty time in our lives. So a lot of the plans went down. I didn't even know we were going to continue. It was really a dark moment in our lives. And but we had that initial songs that we made with Paulo. We had 2 songs, and then he got us the energy. He said, so let's finish, let's do this thing. And then we were gone and we went on. We finished the album and then we recorded. Then he managed to come. That was one of the first things that we could do when we started flying again because the borders were open again. And then we recorded the record. And then it's with a lot of love and a lot of friendship in it, We came up with an old friend of ours because, as I said, this band is it's driven mostly by friendship. And then, yes, we love music and we have this common, ground that makes us make music together. But this stage, if it doesn't feel good as friends, it's just not even worth to try.
Yeah.
So we were on the search for a friend of ours that was able to drum as well, that could do that. So the search was very, very difficult because, your pool of possible musicians shrinks.
Right.
But we were lucky because an old friend, Jerry, he moved to Europe and he was in Spain at the time. And then he has the same background as us. He grew up in Venezuela and he's also half Colombian like my brother and me. And he was very familiar with the intention of the music that we wanted to play. He never played this music, but I knew because we know each other, if you know bands that you like, you kind of know that where
yes,
is it
you
go.
Understand, yes.
You understand that? So he never played this type of music, but I knew, he had the right albums and the right T-shirts with the right bands. You know what I mean? So, and then we just okay, let's get all this thing together with the songs that we started to write with Paulo. We had these demos already with some program drums, very basic. And then it all clicked in. And then in a weird way, I felt as if I was 18 again and that was my first band and that this is what we should have been playing forever. So everything fell back to that time where we started to play, maybe because of the innocent approach that we had and paused everything. But Jerry brought that energy, that punk, that that harshness of the rawness of thrash that we grew up listening to. Of course, for Paulo, it's like another day at the job because that's what he normally has. He has these influences from punk and everything. He's very, very familiar with that. But my brother and I, we were playing Doom. We were playing Doom and Slush for the last 10 years, right? Mm-hmm. And it brought us back to that roots, like Jerry and Paulo did this to us. Like, guys, remember what you guys used to listen into when we were all really crazy about metal? Well, they did that. They brought us there. And all of a sudden, we created something along the lines of what our thrash metal would be if you come from a Doom sludge band. You know? So
because there is some sludge Doom, maybe not.
So then that's the thing, it became a salad. We were like, okay, let's do that, energetic thing that we did when we grabbed the guitar for the first time, and then all of a sudden, because we had such a luggage from all those 10 years being in that scene, some of that just, kind of blended to it. And then you have that record that we wrote.
It's interesting that you said about Jerry that he didn't have a background of thrash, but his drumming is so thrash in the album.
Yeah, well, we listen to the same things, and it is the same combination in a way. Like, he's a punk guy, he listens to a lot of punk.
Well, punk and thrash are not very far apart,
not that far away. So, of course, I mean, the things that I pushed him to do, some things were like, okay, well, now we gotta play double bass here, and he's like, double bass? How? You know what I mean? So, for instance, because he always played with one kick because he's a punk guy in a way, but he has certain elements that actually made thrash, and it's a weird thing. Now you mention it, because now I made this same analogy. Like, the roots of thrash has a lot to do with Latin music, and there is a reason for it. Well, Jerry is, first of all, a percussionist, because he originally, from his family and everything, he plays Latin percussion, right? He's a percussionist, he's Colombian, Venezuelan, and he just plays very well, timbales, salsa, all of that. That's the beginning. And then he fell in love with punk and of course thrash and all the stuff, but he didn't play thrash until now. But then what happens if you tell a guy that is familiar with Latin music to play aggressive stuff? That formula was done in the past as well, and that is Mr. David Lombardo. Mm-hmm. So Dave Lombardo from Slayer, he's Cuban, and he's very familiar with Latin music. So I think it's just because the same situation kind of took place. It's like that Jerry feels so natural playing thrash. He feels as if he was playing Latin percussion, and that resembles quite a bit what Dave did in the past, because he's a pioneer to me, to my feeling. When you say thrash, I say Dave Lombardo, mm-hmm. Because to me, he's like, he together with, Andy Wallace, they created this incredible boost of energy of those first records of Slayer. And, we're kind of like, the AliExpress version of that, obviously, because these are huge icons in music. But it seems to have the same elements, like Jerry shares that Latin oriented way of accenting feels, and then when you put those ingredients, he brings it there, and then it felt really convincing, so it didn't feel like if it was the first time he played thrash. It feels convincing.
That's what I said, right? I wouldn't be able to say that guy doesn't know what he is doing. And
we love thrash.
And I think for Latin people, they have the groove inside their DNA. That's my understanding. So thrash maybe is the same groove, but a little bit faster, a little bit.
Yeah, I noticed that it is sharing a lot with Latin, but as I said, that was just discovering how I see Jerry grooving and playing. And another thing that resembles that is that he is left-handed. And even though Dave Lombardo plays right-handed, he accents a lot with his left, which is a common thing. Maybe I'm saying nonsense. I mean, I'm not a drummer. People could correct me and say me like, what are you talking about? You're crazy. But I have the feeling as a producer that I hear that accent not on the expected right hand when the fills happen in Slayer. And then I hear Jerry, and he does the same thing. So, it has to do with Latin way of playing. Like it's a timbali type of thing, that sure. I hear. And then, of course, the only relationship that we had until now, because, of course, Dave Lombardo being such a legend, he's been with suicidal tendencies now with his testament or anything. But that, to me, is the sound of thrash. Mm-hmm. Dave is the sound of thrash in my ears. And that's why I afterwards realized, like, maybe that's why Jerry coincidentally had the same ingredients. And even though we're not, we're huge distances from our idols, he still has that flavor.
And in the title track of the album, I think at the end, there is some percussion there that sounded like not the regular drums, the way you end that track. So there is some flair there. And I think you have some other instruments playing there, or is it keyboards, everything?
No, there is no keyboards. Like, we're kind of like allergic to over digitalizing our music. Mm-hmm. What you hear over there is an instrument called Kitty Plas, mm-hmm. right? And Kitty Plas is a group of bamboos. People could Google it. It's small bamboos, and they're played in the coast area of our where we grew up in Venezuela. It was an instrument, a ritual instrument that black slaves were carrying with them because they did all their the rituals hidden from their owners, from the slave drivers. So they had to carry these small things, and then they, very ingeniously with the bamboo that was at the coast, they made these instruments. And there are these three groups of small bamboos that they're hollow, okay. And they're hit to the ground or on top of a rock. And they create this trance-like, sound. We're very familiar with this, with little kids and schools could play this. I came to realize that it was very special and very unique when I moved to Europe, and I realized that there is nothing like that in the world.
Oh man, it works amazing in the album. I wish you, maybe in the next album, you can use more of those elements.
I think we will, because people are used to percussion, to typical, like their big drums with mm-hmm. skins and everything. These are nothing like that. These are three groups of bamboos, and they're in different sizes, and therefore they have a different tone, and they're hit to the ground. And it is only typical in that area. I think there are two areas, maybe in Colombia as well, with these populations, and maybe originally somewhere in Africa, there will be something like this, because this was brought up by the slaves that were forced to work at the plantations in Latin America.
And it's great when a band utilizes things from the country they were born. It gives that uniqueness, right? And it
feels right. It's a sound that we're really familiar with. We have obviously different connotations with this. We have different associations with it because we grew up listening to this. But now having a bigger view, this feels like it's us. This feels like it's Cultura Tres.
Absolutely. On Signs, I love the guitar action there. In the middle, there is almost a psychedelic part there, right?
Yeah, that's what I say with our luggage of the doom sludge times. Like we had these long passages that we always did live, and we are very much, all of us, by the way. This was not only Juan and me bringing let's do psychedelic because we used to play psychedelic. No. My brother Juanma is the other guitar player, for those who don't know. No, this is actually something that we all share in the band. Paulo and I, we could spend the whole night drinking wine and listening to old rock. He loves a lot of the 70s music, and it has grown a lot in me throughout the years, right? So we really enjoy the 70s, the looseness of the psychedelia. And of course, we finally had the chance to really explore and go crazy on the songs. Why not? So we had no expectations, and then we jammed a lot of these things. And then, Paulo normally, even though Sepultura nowadays is quite experimental as well and progressive in a way, especially the latest record, is a progressiveness that goes in a more tight, virtuoso way. You know, they're really good musicians, and it's really, really a technical progressiveness, right? Yeah. Andreas is really an incredible guitarist. Everybody in that band is incredibly gifted. We're not that gifted. We're a little bit loose, and we're a little bit we're a reggae band when it comes to that. You know, we don't have the chops and the skills to be progressive in a virtuoso way. So what it comes out is this kind of melancholic 70s cocktail of explosions where there's no virtuosism. There's attempts of expressing, and then it became a thing in the record. We like it when it falls into that atmosphere. I feel I could see us here in my living room drinking some wine and having a good time, but this time we're playing.
And speaking of guitars, I like what you guys have done in 19 horas. I could not say 19 in Portuguese or Spanish. My apologies.
19 horas.
Still, I cannot do that. Don't challenge me. What are the lyrics about that song?
That's difficult, my friend.
It's okay if you don't want to talk about it.
No, it's not even that I want to talk about it. I'll be honest with you. We don't write lyrics. So I cannot claim to be intellectually involved with these lyrics, because actually it happened somewhere in the back of my head. Because we came up acquainted to maybe it was the lack of time at the beginning. I don't know. What was when we started to realize that, we had better results. My brother became the engineer. Normally, I'm the one engineer in the band, but he switched it around. He becomes engineer. He puts a mic. We have a demo of the song, and he just puts a mic on, and then we dim the lights down, and I start to scream whatever it comes to my mind, right? So sometimes it makes no sense, but a lot of the times it makes a lot of sense afterwards. But then I wouldn't know, because these names, these dates, these things are somehow linking each other, but I will be a liar if I claim that I know what they mean, because I don't know what they mean. They seem to be there somewhere. Probably I heard them, I saw them. Maybe they were part of something bigger or not, or maybe they're simply nonsense, but we don't know. So a lot of the times we read the lyrics and all of a sudden there's a meaning in it. And then I try to adjust it for the sake of clarity. And then a great lyric will be put out, right? And there are some lyrics like that, like I would say, The Land is a lyric that says something that I consciously agree with my subconscious. I say like, well done. You said something that I actually mean. But there are other times, and in the case of 19 Hours, is a lyric that gets me really uncomfortable, and other people that have read it also get that uncomfortable feeling, but I wouldn't know what it means yet.
I don't have the lyrics, to be honest.
I maybe at one point I will figure out, that's why that came out, but at this moment it's not clear to me either.
Honestly, it sounds like a therapy. You're just saying stuff that comes to mind, and maybe they have some sort of a meaning for you. So
yeah, sometimes I believe that maybe it's something that I deal with in this outlet that we have created artistically, and then it had gone to a shrink, but it ends up in a record.
Yeah, music does that for us. For the cover artwork, you had, if I'm wrong, correct me please, Damian Michaels, right?
Damian Michaels, yes.
He did Santo Almiento 2 and La Secta?
Yes.
Okay.
He's like a member of the band, like a lot of the times. Yeah, I have long times with Damian always. He always shows me artwork, and then sometimes I come up with a song because I saw something he has drawn. So it complements us very well because he really likes our music and we really like his artwork. So then it's like, okay, sometimes he shows something, he throws an image, and I'm like, wow, I hear a riff, and the other way around as well. So it's very fun to do something with him.
So in this time around, did you give him anything, or this was something that he came up without even listening to the music?
This is a lot of the times is the other way around, because Damien is actually a very recognized artist in Australia, and he has been putting things out for many, many years. So he's not even aware of his own collection. His collection goes beyond his memory. So sometimes I just find something he did at 1 year. I said, like, Damien, what about this one? It's like, oh yeah, I'll send you a high res of that. We can have a look. And then it's like, oh, it's actually pretty evil indeed, So we both discovered something that he did, I don't know, 20 years ago. And we enjoy it. And Damien, something that not many people know about him, especially because he's based in Australia. And he has a very, he's a very serious artist. Many people don't know that he's a metalhead, and he grew up in San Francisco, and he saw the big four at bars, when Metallica and Slayer were playing small venues, and he was there just being a headbanger. So he has this thrash metal youth inside, that serious artist. So we're the outlet for him to relive that period of his life that he likes. So he loves heavy music. And then we feed each other with things. Have you seen these? And I was like, have you heard this riff? And have you seen that other thing? So in this case, was something that he did in the past. Mm-hmm. I saw it, and then Camino De Brujos popped in my mind. So it is a very strong connection visually with the meanings of our lyrics. And that he tells longer stories than we do in lyrics sometimes. When you look at his imagery, it has so much depth that you could lose yourself in it, and then I love that feeling.
I won't lie. I googled his name, and I found so many paintings, and he has an interesting style, very interesting style.
Yeah, he really tickles the right places for us when it comes to creativity.
Mm-hmm. So you said you and your brother did the production and the mixing, everything?
Yes. This time was not the plan. Actually, I don't advise anybody. Like my work is being a producer, so I'm a mixer engineer in life. That's how I pay my bills. Mm-hmm. But I have the feeling like the closer you are to your own product, the less objectivity you will have, right? So in my perfect world, I wouldn't have to produce my band because it's not really what I want. But the problem is like the producer that I want is unreachable for us. Is my hero. That screen went off, but he's the screensaver of my studio. Is Mr. Andy Wallace, and he to me is the real reason why thrash was a thing. He's the real reason why a group appear in metal. He's the hidden reason sometimes, because it's always hidden behind this Rick Rubin produced blah blah blah, because I think that's only a cover. Rick Rubin doesn't do anything. He just has the phone number of Andy Wallace, and that's why he gets some. That's the only credit I will give him. So a lot of the music that we love is done by these guys. That's why even though he's not credited as a producer, I know he is responsible for that sound.
Okay.
And I would love to have somebody like him doing it, but. The industry has taken a complete different turn. I think it's a tendency not only in music, it's also in visuals, like we are living in a world where, social media filters, like people are not even showing the real themselves, or they prefer avatars of themselves than facing the reality, So the same thing happens with metal nowadays, in my humble opinion. And you don't hear a drummer, you don't hear a guitarist, you hear drum samples aligned in the composition of the original drums. And everything sounds perfectly, aligned and perfectly sounding, but it doesn't tell me anything in emotion, because the possibilities that we had being a small band just signed and everything would lead to productions that will follow this trend. I made a difficult decision at the time where I said, well, if we don't want to sound like all the bands that we don't like ourselves, we're going to have to do it ourselves and take the risk. And then I broke that line, I was like, well, I really wanted an objective eye on it, but then I will have to follow the trend, or I will have to be able to afford Andy Wallace, but that we couldn't do it. So then
well, next time, let's say next time.
Next time, who knows? That's my dream to have it. So, well, we did have the chance. Almost a friend of mine who I also trust, which is also in the same direction of Andy Wallace, as Stanley Suarez, is the engineer of Megadeth Live, and I think he's a great producer as well. But he was in between two projects. He had this really big tour. It was very hard for him. So then at the last minute, he was like, okay, it's us or the computer, because that's how we call it.
And you are right.
Then I think we took the risk. But I mean, now a few months, because you never know when you finish, you're just happy that you finished. Now we finally to start to appreciate, and then I think is honest. I don't know, it will never be perfect, and it was not intended to be perfect, but it has the intention of bring that analog realism. There's no Instagram filters or avatars to our drumming or our guitar playing. This is what is what we are. And I hear that in the recording. So I'm happy at this point that we took that choice. At that time, it was a little bit uncomfortable to do, but now I think it was the right decision.
Yeah, sometimes we see bands live and the music they are playing has nothing to do with the record. And it ties to what you said, right? Because they have all these productions or these copy-pasted productions. Well,
it's a way that is the market is not. I mean, I disagree with the record labels' view that this is what the audience wants. Mm-hmm. This is what the only thing they know. They don't know any better, because it's been so long that this cheap way to do things has been put out like the only way to do things. But if this was the case, then the most listened and the most liked metal record of the last 20 years, probably 20 or 10 years, is the Gojira record, right? Mm-hmm. And that Gojira album was done by Andy Wallace the real way. So, you know, to me, the realism will always be the fallback to everything. And the same thing that happens in 1989 when everybody was sounding with those super reverse reverb, all electronic, and then horribly sounding. All even the hair bands, you know, were using this sound. And then just a few years later, Nirvana came in, and then Andy Wallace again put the drum kit out, and then everybody said, "What were we doing? You know, right. Let's go back." You know, so I think it will happen again eventually.
What about touring?
Well, as you can imagine, we have small challenges with that.
Small,
because
right? Small,
yeah,
only small.
Tiny small detail. You know, we just have to share our bass player with one of the biggest acts in the world. So, you know, makes it a little bit complicated. Well, now we're trying to book now in June. There's a break in between the two tours of Sepultura. Sepultura will be touring the U.S. until the 11th of June. And then we'll continue in August and July in Europe. So we have June as a possibility, a window to start playing. Let's see what happens. We don't know if it's going to take us to Latin America. We are talking right now with our agent in Latin America, and then we're seeing what's possible, or if we're going to do something in Europe. The States is not possible right now because, you know, we still have to, you know, do a lot of things in the territories where we have easier access. It's not a secret for anybody how difficult it is to get a working visa for the United States and everything. So that will take a little bit longer, but it's in the plans as well. And we will be taking the windows that we are given in between the tours of Sepultura.
You can always open for Sepultura. I'm sure Paulo will love that.
Now, Paulo, I'm not sure if he would love to have a double bill. Yeah, that's the thing, you know. Before we played with Sepultura, I opened for Sepultura a couple of times with the different bands that we had, and now it's like, it's not possible because, you know, I'll have to send Paulo to the gym for a month, you know. It's like full training. It's like headbanging double time. So I don't know if he's going to appreciate that. But we're probably going to have a couple of windows this year. And then every time that there is in between tours of Sepultura, we will be seeing where are we going to land. We're dying to play this material live. It's also something new for Paolo, I have to say, because, of course, we went into a more psychedelic ways, more related to some bands that he liked from the 70s. And, he was playing with fingers, something that he normally doesn't do. And he was walking the bass just like if we were I felt like I was Jimi Hendrix and he was playing that. So it was fun. So of course, we want to see, or we want to feel all of that live. And we're dying to do it, but we cannot predict as easier as we used to do when it was just a band that had a full agenda open. Now we depend on these spaces that we have.
Last and important question: how we can get the vinyl here in the States?
You could order it through Bandcamp, right? Bandcamp delivers it in the States, I believe, and there is the web shop that is linked to our website will also deliver. There is also a plan to have a stack of vinyls going to the States. We're talking to some importers, but that's hasn't been concrete yet. So for now, the only options will be Bandcamp or the store linked to our website.
Okay.
If we manage to strike a good enough deal to have a bigger stack in the States, obviously the mailing cost is the only problem because vinyl is so fragile. Then the price of the post will be better. But as it is for now, it is available on Bandcamp.
So the best way to support you guys is buying through Bandcamp or through your shop?
Yeah, well, I do normally would say go directly to the store, but I love the guys from Bandcamp and what they've done for the scene so much that I think if you buy it through Bandcamp, you're helping me and a bunch of other bands that depend on that platform.
Makes sense.
So I have a good karma also if you buy it through Bandcamp because I think that's one of the most honest platforms out there, and they're music lovers, and they have proven years and after years to support the smallest band and to be there for them. So I let it to you guys. You have both options. Both will make me happy.
I'm looking at the red one. I think that you have a red one that I like, so maybe I will go with that.
Cool.
Alejandro, thank you very much for your time. I don't know. I wish you the best, and hopefully Paulo will agree for double duty, and we can see you guys live here in the States.
I would love to be there eventually. Let's see, maybe we start with just a showcase of the NAMM or something like that before we actually do something of a larger scale. But we would love to because, we feel really that in the States, people really appreciate what we do. I noticed that there is a tendency in understanding our crazy approach that happens mostly in England and in the States. So we're really curious to see what will be playing for an American audience. That would be great.
Absolutely.
But thanks for the opportunity and thanks for supporting us. It really means a lot to us when we see, because we know that you guys been following us even before these developments. So we know which websites have been around before all the latest developments in this band, and then it's easier for the media to find us now, basically, and in this situation. But the ones that found us before, they are really deep in our hearts. Thanks a lot for supporting us, guys.
You can count on us, man. Thank you very much.